Greetings, one and all. Welcome to a brand new video starring me, LC Muscles here. And it is time for the 2017 Stanley Cup Playoffs. It is probably some of the most exciting playoffs of the entire year. Better than the NBA, in my opinion. But, yeah, we got the NHL Playoffs, the Stanley Cup Playoffs going on starting on Wednesday. But today, since now the official playoff bracket has been finalized, I now be able to give my thoughts on who will be bringing home the Stanley Cup this season. And there are a lot of things I wanted to say about the end of the season. I was wrong about a lot of picks, including the New Jersey Devils and the Florida Panthers making it. I was very disappointed that they both really weren't that good this year. The Detroit Red Wings missed the playoffs for the first time in 26 years. I am very happy about that, though. It was the last time they played their last game today against the Joe Louis Arena. Now they move to the Little Caesars Arena next year. So, yeah, I'm happy that the Detroit Red Wings are not in the playoffs this year. Thank God I can't stand the Red Wings. Probably the most improved team, I think, of this entire year. Like, even though there's a lot of good candidates, Edmonton's one of them. Let me check out the final standings. Probably my most improved team in the Western Conference was probably the Winnipeg Jets. Probably for the the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers were doing very good this year. For the Eastern Conference, most improved team is probably the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. Both teams very impressive this year. And, oh yeah, fun fact. After having 0 playoff teams for Canada last year, there's Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto. There is the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames. So that's 5 playoff teams for Canada this year compared to 0 last year. How will they do this year? Let's find out. I'm going to go through and give my thoughts on the Stanley Cup playoffs and who will be bringing home the Stanley Cup this year. Starting out, I'm going to start off actually in the Western Conference and move my way to the Eastern Conference. So, let's begin. The Western Conference, I'm going to start off with the Pacific Division first. And the first matchup is the Anaheim Ducks against the Calgary Flames. Anaheim is a pretty decent team, to say the least. Anaheim Ducks won the division by a very small margin. I think it was only by 2 points, but the Edmonton Oilers almost won it. It came down to the very last minute of their games. Once Anaheim clinched it, they won the game. Once they won their division, but the Calgary Flames is their first time being back in the playoffs in a long time, and it will be interesting to see how they do this year. But unfortunately, I think they are too young this year. I think the Anaheim Ducks get the series done in 6 games. I think that the Flames will get better next year, but I just think the Ducks have a little bit more firepower than the Flames do right now. Then after that, we got a very good, underrated, very good series that could happen between the Edmonton Oilers and the San Jose Sharks. I think that the San Jose Sharks will win this series. I think they have a bit more playoff experience than the Edmonton Oilers do. The Oilers will be a great team for years to come, but I just don't see them winning this year. I don't see them getting a good series, getting out of this first-round series. I think the Sharks will do it in 7 games. It'll be a pretty good series to watch, but I just think the Sharks got a little bit more momentum, and they want to get back to the Stanley Cup. So I think the Sharks will get past the Edmonton Oilers in 7 games. Next up is the next series in the Central Division. In the Central Division, you have the first series, which is the Chicago Blackhawks against the Nashville Predators. Nashville definitely wants to do what they did last year and upset the top seed in the Western Conference. They could do that with a win over Chicago, but in my opinion, Chicago is the best team in the Western Conference right now. It's hard for any team to beat them, and I think Nashville's going home early. I say the Chicago Blackhawks will get it, but I will think Chicago gets a good series. I think Nashville will put up a good fight, but in the end, it will not matter, unfortunately. I got the Blackhawks winning 7 games. I think the Blackhawks winning the 7 games. I think Nashville will give them everything they have. I think they will take their games in Nashville because Nashville at home in the playoffs is they're a pretty good team at home. So don't discount them at home in the playoffs. I think they will bring the pressure for the Blackhawks, but I think it'll just be a bit too much for them. Next up is the Minnesota Wild and the St. Louis Blues. The Blues are seeking the St. Louis Blues are seeking their second trip back to the Western Conference Finals. Last year, the Western Conference Finals, they're going to try and do it again, but it's going to be tough playing the Minnesota Wild, a very young team, probably one of the best goaltenders in the entire league, Devin Dubnyk, in net. It's going to be tough because I think he had the best goals allowed average out the entire year out of any goalies. I think it was a little bit under I think it was a bit under 2 goals per game average. I think it was like 1.98 or something like that. But I just think the Wild are too good right now. I think the Blues go into the playoffs. I don't think they have the strong goaltending like they did last year with Brian Elliott. I got the Minnesota Wild winning in 6 games. I think it will be a pretty good, decent series, but I think the Wild are just a better team than the St. Louis Blues. But yeah, the St. Louis Blues also don't do well in the playoffs as well. They don't do well other than the last year or so. So yeah, unfortunately, I think the Blues are going to go home. Next up is the Western Conference semifinals, which is going to start off with the Anaheim Ducks and the San Jose Sharks. A pretty good series for both of these teams, but I think that the San Jose Sharks are definitely a bit better than the Ducks. The Ducks came out of nowhere to win the division, surprisingly. Just in my opinion, I thought the Sharks were going to run away with this division in the beginning of the year, but I'm surprised the Ducks won the division this year. I'm pretty surprised, honestly. They came out of nowhere to win the division. I think in February, I think they were they're 3rd or 4th in the division. Now they won it. So I think that the San Jose Sharks though are a little bit better than the Ducks, and I think they will get the big win against the Anaheim Ducks. So I'm going to say the Sharks get the win in 6 games. I think they will beat the Anaheim Ducks and move on. Then you probably have one I think is going to be one of the best one of the best series to see out the entire playoffs. The Chicago Blackhawks and the Minnesota Wild. Going to be a very, very good series. Very underrated teams. Very underrated team in Minnesota. Chicago's been a dynasty of the past 2010s. So with that being said, it'll be a good series. It's going to be a tough series. I think Minnesota does have an edge in goaltending, but I think with Chicago having the home field advantage throughout the series, it's going to be tough for them to lose. I got Chicago in 7 games. I think Chicago's going to be pushed to their limit, but I think Chicago will get the slight win over the Minnesota Wild and move on to the Western Conference Finals. Now the Western Conference Finals featuring the San Jose Sharks, who want to go back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time since last year. They want to go back again. And the Chicago Blackhawks want to go back for the first time since 2015 when they won it all. So what's going to happen? I honestly don't know. This is a coin flip of a series. You got Martin Jones and Corey Crawford are both very good goalies. The offenses are very good for the Blackhawks and the Sharks. Their defenses is really well, especially with a good defensive stand on Duncan Keith and the Chicago Blackhawks and Brent Burns for the San Jose Sharks. But in my honest opinion, I think that the Blackhawks are just a bit of a better team than the Sharks right now. I think that they got a little bit more momentum. So with that being said, I got the Chicago Blackhawks moving on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Again, unfortunately. As much as I don't want to say that the Blackhawks are going to the finals, I just think they're the best team right now to go to the final other than San Jose. I only honestly really see 3 teams going to the Stanley Cup Final for the Western Conference. That's the Chicago Blackhawks, the Sharks, and maybe the Wild. I think the Wild probably the worst chance out of those three, but my money's on Chicago to go to the Stanley Cup Final this year for the Western Conference. Now let's move on to the East. The Eastern Conference is right up next, and we got some interesting playoff series for the Eastern Conference. I'm going to start things off, though, in the Metropolitan Division, probably the best division in hockey this year, with 4 teams over 100 points. That's insane. So, yeah, with that being said, starting out with the first series, I got the Washington Capitals hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs. And unlike the Western Conference, I think something's going to happen in the Eastern Conference that's different from the Western Conference. The top seeds won their first round matchups in the Western Conference. Well, the exact opposite is going to happen in the Eastern Conference. I'm picking picking the Washington Capitals to lose the 7 games over the Maple Leafs. That's right. Bold prediction. I'm picking the Maple Leafs to go to the second round. Why? I think that they are on the rise. I think that they will definitely get hot in the playoffs. Mike Babcock is an extremely, extremely talented coach when it comes to the playoffs. He knew how to beat the Penguins in 2008 when they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. He has playoff experience. Barry Trotz for the Capitals is not that very well coached in the playoffs. They know how to win President's Trophy, sure, but they don't know how to win in the playoffs. And fun fact about the Capitals, I think they only won their first round series 3 times since Alex Ovechkin was drafted. Since he was drafted, they've only won their first round playoff series 3 times. 3 times. So yeah, I do not think the Capitals are going to win. I think they will lose. I think they will take the Toronto Maple Leafs lightly, and I think the Maple Leafs will get a stunning Game 7 win in overtime and knock out the Washington Capitals in 7 games. Calling it right now. Next up is the Eastern Conference Metropolitan second matchup, which is the Pittsburgh Penguins against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And oh boy, the Blue Jackets. This is a tale between 2 different teams right now. This is a tale between 2 different teams. The Columbus Blue Jackets have lost, oh my God, I think it was 7 other past 10 games, while the Penguins have only lost a few, but they had a lot of injuries. But the Penguins, though, absolutely demolished the Blue Jackets 4-1 in Pittsburgh in the last series. It's going to be Bobrovsky versus Murray, but I think the Penguins just have a bit more playoff experience. They've had playoff experience. This is their 11th year in a row, now holding the longest streak in the NHL for playoff appearances in a row. So, yeah, the Penguins are going to go defeat the Columbus Blue Jackets. I really don't see the Blue Jackets putting much of a fight here, unfortunately. They've been on the downslope in the past since late March, mid to late March. They've been on a downslide, and they won while Toronto was resting players, and they were resting players too. So I really don't count that last win. So yeah, I don't think the Blue Jackets are really going to do much. They'll get 1 win in Columbus, but that's about it. I got the Penguins in 5. As much as I was going to say this is like the Rangers series last year, it's not. At least the Rangers had some pretty good defense and a really good tough defense. The Blue Jackets do not have they have to rely on Bobrovsky. That's their big thing, is to rely on Bobrovsky. So that's going to be their downfall. So with that being said, I got the Penguins at 5. I just think that the Penguins are just a much better team. Even with some injuries, even without Chris Letang, I think they will still get past the Blue Jackets. Next up is the Atlantic Division, probably the weakest division all of hockey. You probably have the best division and the weakest division all of hockey in the Eastern Conference. The Atlantic Division now has the Atlantic Division now has this matchup between the New York Rangers and the Montreal Canadiens. It's going to be an interesting series to say the least. It's going to be Lundqvist's last run at a title, and they're going to want to really give him a good series here. I think the Rangers will play hard against the Montreal Canadiens and make up for last year's embarrassing first series loss to the Penguins. I think they'll win in 7 games. Why? I think that their defense is a bit stronger. I think Carey Price is the better goaltender, but I think that the Rangers defense is a bit stronger at this point. I think they've been on a better run, and I think the Canadiens might take the Rangers a little too lightly, and they're not the best team when it comes to home field advantage in the playoffs when it comes to the Atlantic Division as of late. I could be wrong, but they haven't been well in the past couple of years. But back then, when they won their last Stanley Cup, their home field was everything. Now it's a different story. I got the Rangers in 7, though. I just think their defense will be too strong for the Canadiens to do much about. And getting rid of PK Subban was a terrible mistake by them. I still think that's going to be a huge regret for them. Next up is the other series in the Atlantic Division, which is the Ottawa Senators against, in my opinion, the weakest team in all the playoffs, the Boston Bruins. I think the Boston Bruins are like the Red Wings from last year. Just a filler team, and they're not going to do anything much. They might get 1 or 2 games, but that's about it. I give them 2 to be a very, very generous person. I give them 2 games in Boston. More than that, nah, not going to happen. I got the Senators. I think that their goaltending is much better. They're playing for Craig Anderson, who's a much better goaltender than there was their guy, Tuukka. And yeah, the Senators don't have thugs like the Boston Bruins do. So yeah, I got the Senators. Moving on. Next up, let's go to the Atlantic Division. In the Atlantic Division second round is the Rangers and the Senators. Yep, the Rangers and the Senators meet up in the next round. And this is a pretty good series. You got Lundqvist and Anderson fighting to go to the Stanley Cup. And this is going to be a pretty good matchup between 2 goaltenders and 2 great offenses. But I just think right now the Senators at home field, having that home field for the matchup would be too much. I got the Senators in 7 games. I think the Senators are a bit better, much better of a team, and I think they will get the win. I think that their offense will do just enough to get them past the Rangers. Expect it to be a low-scoring series for this one as well if it happens. Then you have the other side, the Metropolitan semifinals, which is the Eastern Conference semifinals, which is the Pittsburgh Penguins against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And as much as I like to see the Maple Leafs do something, much as I see them happy if they beat the Washington Capitals, they're not beating the Penguins. The Penguins would be too strong at this point. And with the rest that they get, if they beat the Blue Jackets, I think that'll be too much for them, for the Maple Leafs to overcome. I got the Penguins winning in 5 games as well. I think the Penguins just have a little bit more experience, and also getting revenge from 2008. Like they also did in 2009, but they will get revenge not being off Babcock. But yeah, I got the Penguins moving on in 5 games. Then you have the Eastern Conference Finals matchup between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Ottawa Senators. The Penguins would have home field advantage since they were second in the entire league in points. This will be a very good series. It'd be like the Tampa Bay. It has the makings to be a good series, but at this point, the Senators would be too tired from fighting on the Rangers and the Bruins, but they will give the Penguins a great run. I think they might get 1 game, but it's going to be tough to say. I honestly say they might give the Penguins they might get 1 game in Ottawa, but look at the playoff series for Pittsburgh and Ottawa, their matchups. I'm going to take a quick look. October. Let's go back to see. But yeah, this series. I know they lost one overtime, but that really doesn't count because a shootout. A shootout. That's why it was a shootout. Because shootouts don't really count in the playoffs anymore. It's all the playoff goals. It's all sudden death. There's no shootouts in the. Okay, they beat Ottawa 8-5 at home when they were at Pittsburgh. They lost to Ottawa once. Okay, they lost to Ottawa. And I think that's it. I think they only they lost in the shootout. So I think Ottawa would be a good matchup, but I think the Penguins are just too good for the Senators. Unfortunately, I think the Senators' lack of experience in the playoffs is going to hurt them. I got the Penguins moving on in 5. That's right. I got the Penguins moving on in 5 to go meet the Chicago Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup Finals. For the matchup I've been waiting for all year to see, the matchup that I want to see, the matchup I predicted the very beginning of the year to happen, and I think it will happen in the Stanley Cup Finals, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Chicago Blackhawks. Unfortunately, though, for this series, I think the Blackhawks would have the home field advantage as they finished first in their division. I'm not 100% sure because of their seeding placement. I'm not 100% sure. I know the Penguins have more points, but I don't know if they would or not. Let me double check because that would be very helpful for my prediction. Because having Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals is huge. So, okay, so here you go. So yeah, that's current format. Okay, so the best of 7 series, first round. Okay, yeah, the seeds would play the lowest seed. And okay, so yeah, it would be the okay, so it would be it would be the Penguins then. Okay, so yeah, it would be the team with the most points. The first 2 rounds, the higher seed, but then after that, it's the top amount of points. So yeah, it would be points. So yeah, that's how it would be, and so yeah, that's why I think it would be Pittsburgh and Chicago. Pittsburgh would have home field advantage if that's what stands right now because Pittsburgh I think finished with 115 or 114 points, and Chicago only finished with 108. So let me double check. I think it was 100. Yeah, 111 or 108. So hey, it was still 109. So hey, they still get the playoffs, the Stanley Cup Finals with their points advantage. So with that being said, it would be a very tough, very, very, very tough series. But in the end, though, just having Chicago play 3 7-game series is not going to help them when it comes to the finals, especially with Corey Crawford getting older in age. The offense is very good for the Blackhawks, and the Blackhawks are a very good team in the regular season against the Penguins, but in the postseason, it's a bit different. Remember the last time the Blackhawks and Penguins played in the Stanley Cup Finals? The Penguins swept them. Do I think a sweep this time? No. I don't think it will happen. But I just think with the Penguins getting as much rest they needed from playing less games, And the Blackhawks are playing much tougher competition where the Penguins won't play as much tough competition. I think the Penguins will be right for the Blackhawks more than the Blackhawks will be right for the Penguins. So with that being said, I got the Penguins winning the Stanley Cup again. I got them winning it in 5 games, maximum 6. I'd like to see them win at home ice, though. So I'd like to see the 5-7 games if that happens. But I think the Penguins are just too much for the Blackhawks. Crawford versus Murray. I take Murray all day. Even though Crawford has more experience, I just think Murray's a better goaltender for the future. And I don't think Crawford's got much left in him, especially if he's going to be playing some good teams and really not doing as well beforehand. So with that being said, I got the Penguins repeating the Stanley Cup champions. My MVP for the Conn Smythe, if I had to go with someone very underrated, I have to go with an underrated player. Someone who I think will be a very, very decisive player in this series. I don't think it will be Sidney Crosby. I don't think it'll be Murray. I don't think it'll be Kessel. I don't think it'll be Hornquist. I'm going to put it on rookie. If you guys know who this is, for the Penguins, if you know who this is, he's been such a stud since he debuted this year. So my Conn Smythe Trophy Award winner is Jake Gensel. I think he will be a deciding factor, especially in the playoffs. Just like the rookies did last year, he will bring the Penguins to their 5th Stanley Cup. And that is going to do it, guys, for my NHL 2017 Stanley Cup predictions. Let me know what yours are in the comments below. With that being said, see you later, stay awesome, have a great night, and go Penguins.